Hello, and welcome to Virtual Birding. Spring is here, and we're looking for migrants today, and our target bird is really warblers in general, but since we have to pick one, I'll go with palm warbler, as it's a nice early migrant. Since we're on the East Coast, there's two different subspecies of palm warbler we can get, with western palm warbler, that's a little bit more brown, and then yellow palm warbler, that's nice, bright, and yellow. Today we're at Huntley Meadows Park. It's a lovely park near Alexandria, Virginia. This park has a really wide variety of habitats, from forest to wetlands and marshes, and even some places that have open water. And so it's often a good place to come to rack up a good number of species, but I always recommend getting there early in the morning, as that's when the birds are most active, as you can hear now with this barrage of bird songs. But also it's before it gets too busy, because this is quite a popular park. We'll start out with the first bird being a hermit thrush, which is always a really fun find. You can see that really nice rusty tail here in the first half of April. This is the only thrush I expect to see today, but it's nice to pick it up early. Got some chipping sparrows singing around, but it's a little dark in the forest still, so it's kind of hard to see, but that is a new species. Hopefully we'll pick up one at some point today. And here we have our first mammal, eastern gray squirrel, working its way along a little log there. Definitely a familiar face on Virtual Birding. Yeah, so one thing we're going to be looking for today is our 100th species. And we've got two new ones already, just heard only so far, but chipping sparrow and blue-gray gnatcatcher, which puts us at 99 species for Virtual Birding. So whatever our next new species is will be our 100th. But here we have a white-throated sparrow, which we've seen on pretty close to every birdwalk we've done, so that's not going to quite do it for us, but real nice one. Should be a lot of them in the forest today. Hearing some goldfinches, dark-eyed junco, quite a few birds singing this morning. You're going to see a lot more of that little music note icon. Definitely spring on the way with all of these birds singing away. I always get very excited for this time of year, see a little bit of green, hear a lot of bird songs, pretty wonderful. So it's still pretty early for warblers, but there are a couple that we could get. Palm warbler and yellow rump warbler are the most likely, but we could also get common yellowthroat, Louisiana water thrush, maybe a black and white warbler. Oh, there's a Louisiana water thrush now. That's one of the ones that's a little less likely, but there's something else in the tree right here at the moment. Tough to see, but really pale gray underneath the eye line. That's a chipping sparrow. But I think it's worth going back. Let's try to get that Louisiana water thrush. That's our 100th bird for Virtual Birding, so definitely worth trying to get a look. And our first warbler of the day, so definitely a great one. I think I see it up there. Yeah, sitting up there. Nice Louisiana water thrush. It's blocked a little bit by the sticks. You can hear that beautiful song. Got a little bit of an eye line there. Otherwise a pretty brown bird. Very brown warbler. See if we can angle around, get a better look. Oh, but yeah, there it flew off. There's a hermit thrush singing quite close. Oh, and it looks like it's just right over our head. Try to get a look. Maybe not the best look at a hermit thrush. I think our first one was a little bit better. This one's kind of straight up its butt, but you can definitely see that rufous tail still. I angled around to try to get a little bit better look, but it ended up taking off too, so we'll keep heading out. Keep making our way down the trail. See if we can find any more of these singing birds. Maybe get a couple more warblers. That Louisiana water thrush is still singing nice, but it sounds like it's a little further back off into the woods. So we'll see what else we can find. See if there's a couple more warblers. But that's 100 birds for virtual birding. It feels like a pretty good milestone and a nice day and a nice place to get it here in the start of spring. Really, if I wanted to see more warblers, coming out later in April would have probably been the best bet, but I'm going to be out of the country for a little bit, so I'm not going to have the chance to go birding until May, again, here in the States, so I'm really hoping to get some warblers today. And that's a nice yellow bird, but American goldfinch, not a warbler. That said, that is the first American goldfinch we've seen somehow. We've heard them on quite a few bird walks that we've done, but that's the first one we saw, so nice to get it. But as I was saying, this is really my only shot to get warblers until May, so even though May will be the perfect time to get pretty much all of the warblers, it'll be nice after all winter of just seeing yellow rump warblers to get a couple. It's a common grackle flying overhead, but I didn't see it. Definitely heard it a few times as it went over, but maybe there'll be more out in the marsh. Some red-headed woodpeckers calling now. Off in those snags. They like these sort of wet areas with a bunch of snags, and I think I see a woodpecker on the side of the tree there. But nope, it's just a stick sticking off that looked a lot like a woodpecker. So we'll keep going up. They do kind of sound like they're still a little ways up ahead. So hopefully we'll be able to find them once we get up there. They're definitely calling quite a bit, should make it easy for us. There's another bird in the dead trees. Doesn't look like a woodpecker, but yeah, eastern bluebird. That's a nice one. They also like these open dead snag areas. This time of year, they'd be probably looking for old woodpecker nests to nest in. So that'll be maybe what that bird is doing. Or potentially, it's got a female nearby that's already starting to build her nest. I know some bluebirds already have nests going already. But we'll keep going up, look for those red-headed woodpeckers. So a common yellowthroat sang up ahead as well. It's another warbler we can try to get a look at. That'd be a good one. I thought yellow-rumped warbler and palm warbler would be the most likely to get today, but we've got Louisiana water thrush and common yellowthroat already, which is two of the ones I thought might be a little tougher. And there's our red-headed woodpeckers. Got a pair of them there. Looks like that one that's still there is at a nest, so looks like they're working on a nest for the breeding season as well. Can hear them drumming. Definitely a time of year that birds are pretty territorial, and those red-headed woodpeckers are no exception. It's another bird up there, and it's a European starling, which is a bird you don't necessarily want to see here with these red-headed woodpeckers. European starlings are not a native bird, and one of the species they affect the most is red-headed woodpeckers, throwing them out of their nests, even sometimes after they have eggs or nestlings to take them over. So not a bird I like to see here, but there goes a little song sparrow. Not the best look, but that's a bird we've seen quite a bit. And there's a swamp sparrow down in there as well. I thought that was maybe where the song sparrow had gone, but a swamp sparrow instead, which is nice. Another new species for our bird walk today. But we'll keep making our way into the marsh, hit the boardwalk here, which we'll spend quite a bit of time on, but there is a big bird flying across there, and if we can get a look at that, that'll be a real treat for you. One of my personal favorite birds. And there it is, pileated woodpecker. Real big woodpecker with that bright red crest. Really something to see. About the size of a crow. Absolutely massive compared to those much smaller red-headed woodpeckers, which aren't tiny. But yeah, that's a nice pickup. Another bird that we've heard on virtual birding in the past, but we've never seen, so really good bird to pick up. And there's another brief view at a swamp sparrow before it takes off. Should be a lot of them out in the marsh. We probably won't stop for everyone, but decent chance we'll come across another that will be worth putting the binoculars on. Keep making our way along, get some water here. And there's not a water bird, but a savanna sparrow. This isn't necessarily the habitat I would expect them in, but this bird's probably a migrant, and migrants will put down just about anywhere, which is really a fun part of this time of year. Seeing birds in unexpected places after they put down after a night of flying. Got a flicker calling here, and there it is up in the tree. We're doing quite well on woodpeckers today. That one's really lit up nice in that morning sun. Another territorial bird doing its call. Alright. Got another bit of open water here. There's usually some ducks in here, and it looks like a couple of them swimming away. We got wood ducks kind of heading away, but that's a bird that's pretty common here at this park, so hopefully we'll get a little bit better look further out into the marsh. Another common thing is planes here, which you can hear pretty loud overhead. I think we'll probably get quite a that noise today. It's pretty tough here in this part of Virginia to get away from airplane noise, so we'll have to just put up with that. But out in the marsh we have 2 more ducks, something new, green-winged teal. You can see that little white stripe on the male, even though you can't see its colors all that well. Very fun to see. Probably another spring migrant. There's that common yellowthroat singing again. And red-winged blackbirds. We've started hearing them already, and here's a nice male out displaying. A lot of people talk about the first robin of spring, but for me, I see robins all year round, and I don't really associate them with spring the way a lot of people do, but this is what I associate with spring. When I start hearing this red-winged blackbird song, that's when I know that spring is here, and it's time to start getting out and looking for migrants. Honestly, one of my favorite songs for that reason. Here we have a couple more Canada goose. The red-winged blackbird and the common yellowthroat are still singing. Quite a few red-winged blackbirds out in the marsh this morning, it sounds like, but we'll keep making our way along with my squeaky shoes and go see if we can't find that common yellowthroat. Looks like a bird up in this little willow, and sure enough, there it is. Our second warbler of the day, common yellowthroat. Ironically, neither of the warblers we've seen today have warbler in the name, but yeah, water thrush, not a thrush, it's a warbler, and the common yellowthroat is a warbler as well. So 2 warblers down. Both of the paths at this intersection are quite good, but we're going to stick along the edge of the woods, hoping for that palm warbler. But there's a bird in flight way off in the distance, and there we have a turkey vulture. Those real V-shaped wings rocking back and forth. Doesn't look like it has much of a head. Even though distant, definitely identifiable. And behind us, I think I see something on that root pile. Ah, and there, nice. Blue-gray gnatcatcher. One of the ones that we heard earlier this morning, but hadn't seen yet. This bird can actually be very, very difficult to see. There's a ton of them here this morning, based on what I could hear. But they're really, really tiny little guys, and they are pretty tough to spot up in the trees. So seeing one this well on this root cluster is a real treat. It's a bird that I thought could definitely go herd only today, even though there's quite a few of them. Alright, blue-gray gnatcatcher down, and a good look too. That is also very special. Definitely another migrant species, one of the earlier ones that we get here in Virginia. So another early migrant knocked off my list. We'll keep making our way down the trail, trying to watch both the forest and these little wetland pools. And up in the air there we have a nice red-shouldered hawk. It's another bird that we've heard in the past, deep in the forest, but not gotten a look at. Definitely one of the prettiest hawks. You can see that kind of rusty barring on the underside. And you can catch those windows in the wings when it banks that are pretty distinctive of this species, at least here in Virginia. Nice barred tail, not unlike a broad-winged hawk, but the barring's a little closer together. Very nice. Sun's definitely starting to come up a little bit better now. Might make things a little easier to spot on these marshy pools. And got some more ducks back there. There's a little bit better look at wood ducks. We got a couple swimming towards us this time instead of away from us. Few weeds in between, but doesn't stop us from seeing these absolutely beautiful ducks. Another one of my absolute favorites, and really beautiful this time of year. There's a lot of wood duck boxes out here in the marsh, like you can see over in the corner of that pool that they like to breed in. And there's another duck there as well. And we got a nice hooded merganser. This is a female. There's a lot of them that breed in these wood duck boxes as well. Looks like she's gonna hop up on the log. That wood duck's trying to go past, and seems like they do not like each other very much. Hooded mergansers will sometimes dump eggs in wood duck nests, and so sometimes you'll see a wood duck family of baby ducklings, and there'll be a merganser with them. So possibly that is what leads to that little bit of strife there. Seems like the male that doesn't really do any of the child rearing didn't really seem to care that that merganser was there, so I think there's a decent chance that does explain what those two females didn't really like about each other. Alright, some nice ducks on that pool. Two species that definitely breed here in good numbers. I imagine there might be some ducklings around already, but I think more likely if you came here in a couple weeks to a month, there'd probably be quite a few little mergansers and maybe some baby wood ducks around. But none today so far. Looking out at this pool, it looks pretty empty, but on the far side there is a great blue heron. So that's nice. Again, if you would come here in a month or so, there might be great egrets or green herons, that sort of thing out here as well. But for today, I'm really only expecting great blue heron as far as herons and egrets go. But no other ducks on the pool. This place can be pretty full of ducks in the winter and the very, very early spring, but a lot of them have probably migrated out at this point. But there's a little duck-like bird that just popped out from under the boardwalk, and it's an American coot. Definitely duck-like, but it's got that more pointed bill than the flat bill of a duck, and its bill is very white. Really dark bird. You can see a little bit of that red shield in the front of the forehead. We'll try to sneak past it. Looks like we might really not even need to sneak. Seems like it is pretty used to people. A lot of people do come to this park, so it probably sees people all the time. But if it's going to stay so close, we'll take another look. Can really see that bright red eye here now, catching the sun. Very neat little bird. We'll leave it to its foraging. At that last intersection, if we had taken the other way, we would have met up with this section here, but we will continue going forward instead of looping back to where we started and head towards this little patch of woods up here. Got a nice red-winged blackbird close. Might as well take a look. It's just going to sit there pretty for us. And it is certainly pretty. Definitely an underappreciated bird in my opinion. Little commotion here. Looks like we got an American crow taking on a common raven. Ravens will take crow eggs out of their nests, and so the crow is probably a resident with a nest here. Wants to get rid of that migrant raven, keep it heading north. Don't want it sticking around here causing trouble, but definitely a cool bird to see. Cool interaction. And common raven, another new one. There goes a red-winged blackbird whipping past. Didn't have time to get binoculars on that one, but naked eye you can tell what that is, especially with so many red-winged blackbirds around. This area can sometimes have ducks, but nothing today, so we'll keep making our way towards the forest. Ah, there's a brown creeper just sang. That's definitely worth trying to get a glimpse of. We'll see if we can find it here. And yeah, there it is. Moving like a little piece of bark on this other tree and then takes off way back into the forest. But still singing. Very, very high call. Certainly some of the older birders in my life have a little trouble hearing that one. So if you can't hear it, there's no shame in that. But neat call. Definitely a interesting one, how it kind of cascades down. There's something out in the marsh, maybe a shorebird? No, not a shorebird. It's a red-winged blackbird sitting out on a lump in the water, doing its best spotted sandpiper impression. But alright, we'll head up here. There's a little tower. We'll pop in there, but let's try to get a look at this Carolina wren singing. And there it is, sitting up, singing away. Heard quite a few of them this morning already, but it's good to get one in the binoculars. Alright, we'll keep making our way up. But here's another distraction down there. Sparrow or something moving. And a nice swamp sparrow. That one's looking particularly rusty. Nice gray face. Very, very pretty. A little easier to tell than some of the swamp sparrows we saw in the winter that weren't quite as bright and rusty. Way out there on the boardwalk, it looks like there's a mallard sitting there. Looks like it's got a couple friends down in the water. Alright, we'll keep scanning around, see if we can find anything. Looks like a tree swallow sitting out there on a little snag. This is definitely a place that they breed, but this has got to be one of the first ones back. Some things down in the water, and here we have our first reptiles on virtual birding. Got some red-eared sliders with those little red ears, and then you can see that little bit of red at the base of the neck of that painted turtle. So 2 species of turtles, very nice. We'll head down the tower, walk out on this little section of boardwalk, and maybe we can get a little bit better look at both those turtles and the tree swallow, because they were pretty distant. This is an area that I often see a ton of photographers hanging out, but today it's pretty empty. I suspect I know why, but more on that later. First, we've got this nice tree swallow. And if we look over where those turtles were, seems they've rearranged a little bit, but there are some nice red-eared sliders. You can see the red ears, and then you can see those yellow spots on the back of a tiny little painted turtle head. So still both species, but turtles do seem to have moved around a little bit. Keep making our way along. Comes a couple mallards. And there goes the second one. You can see those green heads really catching the light. Alright, we'll keep making our way along. Doesn't seem like there's too much out in this open water out here, but there is something moving on the edge. Got a really pretty northern cardinal. Bright and red in that green bush. Well, we've now reached the area that when I get palm warblers, this is where I often will find them. This forest back here is a little bit wet, and they seem to like this area. This is, in fact, an area that I've had a lot of good birds over the years, and got something out there now. Red-bellied woodpecker, not the best look, but you can see a little bit of red on the crown and the really plain sort of brown belly. And it was calling, which obviously helps as well. Couple birds calling in here. That eastern bluebird's still really going for it. Got blue-gray gnatcatcher going as well. I'm not hearing any palm warblers, but sometimes they're quiet here in the early part of the spring. So we'll have to keep our eyes open as well. Usually this section is pretty full of birds, and I'm not really seeing much at all, so it doesn't bode super well for our palm warbler hopes. But any place here in the woods along the edges of this marshy area can be pretty good, so we'll have more chances. And there's a bird now. It is a warbler, but not a palm warbler. It's a nice yellow rump, but a really pretty male. They're really coming into their spring colors now, so that one looks a lot prettier than a lot of the yellow rump warblers we've seen this winter. Same species, same subspecies, but now in its spring plumage, looking really sharp. So up to 3 warbler species, which this early in the spring is pretty good. But I'm definitely still hoping to make it 4, so we'll have to keep our eyes and ears open. It's a little quieter here in the woods than it was when we walked in right at first light, but definitely still a lot of birds singing, which is always a definite sign of spring. Even got some of the yellow rumps getting in on it now. This area here in the back is a place that I often get palm warbler, but it's also a place I often get rusty blackbird this time of year, but really I'm not hearing either of them, and we're kind of getting towards the end of the area that I would expect them. As we hit this intersection here, we're really getting out of the area that I find pretty productive along this back part of the trail. We're getting into the area that I often find more quiet, but hopefully it'll be reversed today, because we didn't really see much in the area that usually is productive. There's a little bit of motion up in the tree. Warbler sized. It's yellow. And catching a little bit of rusty cap there. That's our bird. Palm Warbler, and definitely the yellow subspecies. Very, very bright yellow underneath. Really special bird that you can really only see east of the Appalachian Mountains. So definitely a real treat. When I do some of my birding later in the spring, I'll be west of the Appalachian Mountains. And so this might be the only yellow palm warbler I see this spring. So definitely a real treat, and it looks like it's got a real treat as well, as there must be some caterpillars already out. Looks like it caught one and is sort of knocking it against the branch there. Very, very cool. Oh, hairy woodpecker just called. Let's see if we can find that. There he is. You see a little bit of motion, a little bit of bark shooting off, but it's got to be our hairy woodpecker. Yeah, you can see him peeking around. Real big bill. Not the best look in the world, but definitely a hairy. Let's take another look at that yellow palm. Yeah, look at him there. Sitting a little more still now. I do love the western palm warblers too, but there's something about yellow palm that is really next level. Well, that is our target bird, and we are up to 4 warbler species, which I didn't necessarily expect to get today. I thought there was probably a pretty good chance we'd get yellow rump warbler. There should be a lot of them around. I'm actually sort of surprised we've had as few as we've had. And I thought we could probably get palm warbler, at least I was hoping so. I thought maybe we'd get common yellowthroat, but Louisiana water thrush really wasn't even on my list of things that I thought was possible today. But it was south winds last night, and so a lot of migrants did come in. So even though I haven't been hearing about people seeing Louisiana water thrush, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised one showed up. It is that time of year, but I'm definitely glad it did. Got another bird here. Again, not the best look in the world. Pretty similar from the hermit thrush this morning, but we got a mourning dove sitting there on that dead branch. We'll keep making our way along. Just up here, there's going to be a real treat for you, and I suspect we'll find our photographers that weren't out on the boardwalk. Sure enough, if you catch there down in the corner of the screen, there's a little group of people here, so we'll come check out what they're taking a look at. And there it is, a nice great horned owl. You can hear the photographers taking some photos. Pretty magnificent bird. We'll keep making our way along. We'll leave people to their photographs. I'm often pretty reluctant to give owls location as I don't want them to be harassed, but pretty much everybody and their dog knows where this bird is. In fact, I have seen people with dogs standing underneath it looking at it, and so I think it's probably alright. Here's another yellow rumped warbler. But that owl nested here this spring, and I actually came a little earlier to see it on the nest. At this point, the babies have fledged already, but the female owl is still hanging around, keeping an eye on them, so that is why it's still around. And I'm glad we got to take a look at it, and it's good to get one that's pretty well known that I'm happy to show. So, definitely neat. Great horned owl, and a couple more white-throated sparrows there on the path. We'll keep making our way around. Just up here, we will meet back with the main trail, just in front of the boardwalk. But might be a few birds here in this little section first. And there is a very little bird, and it's a ruby-crowned kinglet, pretty distant, kind of hard to see, but you see that really pale gray bird. You can see a little bit of a wing bar, and right when its eye caught the sunlight, you can see that little bit of a white eye ring. And so you know it's a ruby-crowned kinglet. At this point, the golden-crowned kinglets are mostly gone. It would be possible to run into one still, but most of them have already headed north, and the ruby-crowned kinglets, which were around in the winter in much lesser numbers, are now around in big numbers as a lot of them are migrating through. Just to the left there was the path that led out to the boardwalk, so we're back on the path that we walked in this morning. And we'll be making our way out. Those red-headed woodpeckers are the same ones we heard this morning in that area with all of the dead snags. Here's something here. Another cardinal. Really bright and nice and red. Very pretty. You know, we've done pretty well so far. I think we've seen most of what we're gonna see, but there's still some opportunity here on the way out to try to get a couple birds. One thing I would like to get is chipping sparrow. There were a ton this morning singing out here, and we did see that one really high up in the tree, but it was a pretty bad look, and I'd like to get a good look at that species since it's a new one for our virtual birding life list. But we'll see if we can't find one. Sometimes as it gets a little quieter, they can be a little harder to find, so we'll see. But some yellow palm warblers singing in here, still that hairy woodpecker calling. But definitely quieter than it was on the way in, even if there are quite a few things still singing. There's a rusty blackbird. Yeah, there it is sitting in the tree. You can see it's not as long-tailed as a grackle would be, and the bill is kind of shorter. It's about the shape of a red-winged blackbird, but it's got a real pale eye. Maybe not the best view in the world, but a really nice bird. It's got that call that sounds kind of like a rusty hinge. Here we have a tufted titmouse. Definitely a bird we've heard a ton this morning, but this is the first one we've laid eyes on today, which is nice. Rusty blackbird, that rusty squeaky hinge still going. Got American robin up here, very cool. Hairy woodpecker calling again too. You can hear that very, very high-pitched robin noise. There it is again. Chickadee singing here. Oh, there's the robin noise again. Yeah, as I was saying, that robin noise, that really high pitch, is their warning call, which is interesting. That is also a call that we heard in the same spot this morning as we went through. And so I wonder if they're nesting here already. If they have a nest, they might be giving a warning call to let the female know that there's an intruder going past. So that's likely it, but we're pretty much out. So there's the parking lot, but there's a little bit of motion there. And there's our chipping sparrow. So did get it after all, right at the parking lot. But that's a pretty nice view, much better than this morning. Nice black eyeline little guy with really gray chest. And yeah, we're back to the parking lot. So we'll call this the end of our bird walk. So for our walk summary, we had 49 species of birds, 1 species of mammal, and 2 species of reptile in 1.23 miles. In an hour and 40-minute walk, we met our goal of seeing warblers and saw a palm warbler, and even saw the subspecies that we wanted, the yellow palm warbler. So now we have our species list. We have HO for herd-only species, N for new species for our virtual birding life list, and S for a species that we've seen for the first time that we had as herd-onlys before. Like usual, I'll pick a bird of the day, which could be our target bird, but can certainly be something different. And today it's definitely something different. It's the bird that surprised me the most today, which was Louisiana water thrush. Definitely a bird with a very pretty song, and a bird that I haven't really heard anybody singing so far yet this spring. So definitely one of the first ones to arrive in the area. Finish things off, we have our virtual birding life list with 109 species of birds, with 12 new ones today, 4 species of mammal, 2 species of amphibian, and with our 2 turtles, we have 2 species of reptiles. Thanks for coming out on this bird walk with me to look for early migrants. I hope you had as much fun as I did, and happy birding!